Well, Hannah, thank you so much for being on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here. We've got some great stuff to go through, and I'm really looking forward to that. But before we get started, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name's Hannah. I am a blogging and Pinterest coach and expert also, if you want to throw that word in there. I help bloggers go full-time and quit their 9-to-5s while creating consistent passive income without a big audience or a lot of time. So if you're somebody that really wants to make a living from your blog, I can help you do it.
I'm really excited about this because I know the majority of the part, some of my audiences are bloggers. And I always get the questions, oh my gosh, how do other bloggers make a living by just blogging all the time? And there are so many different strategies behind it. And I know we'll get to that in a bit. And we've got some great stuff to talk about. But I want to know a little bit more about you and just how you got started. I mean, first of all, don't get me wrong for saying this, but oh my gosh, you're so young. And I just love seeing young women who are getting into the entrepreneurial world, who's paving their own way and making a success for themselves. How did you get started? What kind of motivated you to just decide this is what I'm going to do?
So this is going to be a little crazy, but I started my business when I was a junior in college, and I actually started my blog before that, but I didn't really get into the businessy side of things until I was a junior. That's kind of when the, oh crap, I need to figure out how I'm going to make money kind of kicked in. And the motivation and kind of passion behind it was I always wanted to be happy. I really wanted to spend more time with my friends, my family, my kids when I was able to have them. And I just felt like that was way more important than feeling stressed out with a 9-to-5 and having to get up and go to work and drive. I am originally from Vermont, a very small town in Vermont, and I actually moved to right outside of New York City because I was like, okay, small town girl going to the big city, and then I realized that it took 2 hours to travel into the city for work, and I'm like, not really feeling that. And then I kind of just got stuck on like, oh, I made my first little bit of money with blogging, and I kind of deep dived into Pinterest and became an expert on that, and then made more money. So I was like, maybe I can actually make this work after school. So the spring semester of my senior year, I sat down and was like, okay, I need to make some serious money to kind of like prove to mom and dad that I can make this happen. And they were very, very, very skeptical. But basically, I ended up about 6 to 7 months after I started working for myself after graduation, I was making more money from my blog and my business than what I would have at a 9-to-5. So I was like, there, take that, mom and dad. Like, I'm not going to be stuck in a 9-to-5. And I have so many people also come to me and say, I hate my job. I hate going to work 9-to-5 every day. And I know, like, to some people, it's almost like a, why are you being a brat about it? Like, everybody works 9-to-5, but also your life is short and you should be able to do whatever you want when you want to do it and have a job that allows you to do that. So passive income and creating income when you want to is what I'm incredibly passionate and motivated about. So that's long story. That's what made me start, and that's kind of the passion behind it.
That's amazing. And how long have you been doing this, if I may ask?
So I started my blog about 4 years ago now, which seems crazy to actually say that. I've been working specifically with Pinterest for a little over 3 years. I had a lot of trial and error with my blogs. And then I basically came across a strategy that was working really well for me. So I tested it, and I did case studies and all of that stuff for about 2 years before I took on my first Pinterest management client. And then from there, I've had about 20 clients in the last year and a half-ish that I've been able to even further tweak and test and run case studies with to kind of perfect the strategy to work for any niche. So that's the time frame that I'm working with.
You know, it is just so inspirational to see you starting from a young age, going through this, just enjoying what you're doing. You just started blogging, enjoying it, and then all of a sudden you went, oh, I need to make money from this. And you did. And like you said, you proved to your mom and your dad, like, look at what I'm doing. Look at what the online world is, providing all these possibilities for me in order to actually make a living from it. And, honestly, hats off to you for how can I say, recognizing that and taking the motivation and the inspiration and just moving forward. I think the other thing that I want to talk about is you actually mentioned a little bit that when you started your blogging, you started making a little bit of money from it. Can I just ask you, can you just give us an example of what is it that you did to make a bit of money from your blog? And if you can just give us a little example, I think that would be great, because that will kind of like segue into what we're going to talk about soon.
Yes, of course. So I had like a couple different successes in terms of blogging. So the first bit of money that I made was like a very small amount with like ads, Google ads and stuff like that. Obviously, I wasn't powerful enough to be on like Mediavine, which is a very powerful ad revenue service. So when I kind of like got that first very small Google ads revenue check, I was like, oh, this is really interesting, and maybe I can actually make something out of this. And then actually in March of this year, I did a Instagram ebook that kind of taught people how to become Instagram influencers, because obviously that's a big topic right now. And I actually ended up making $3,000 with just 3 pins that I pinned on Pinterest, and that was
Amazing.
within 3 months. Yeah, so that was kind of like a wow, I wasn't expecting this to happen, and it's happening. So I really capitalized on that, and that's kind of when I jumped into the real persona of being passive income driven and kind of make money from anywhere, because it's so easy to do. You just have to follow the steps.
Yes, and I love your examples because it just shows that there are ways to do it. So for those of you listening to this now or who's watching this, honestly, if you have an idea and you just want to do it, there are so many ways to do it. Just don't complicate it for yourself. It is absolutely possible. And like Hannah's saying, you just got to follow the steps. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So I think the first thing that you want to discuss with us a little bit is, first of all, the mindset, because let's face it, that's the first step, which I find is the most important thing. Even for me in my coaching industry, I always start with the mindset before I do any other strategic coaching. So talk to us about the mindset and how you've evolved with that yourself, but also how you kind of find that helps for your clients.
Yeah, so many people come to me with the fear, like with fear being their number one reason why they haven't started or why they're not successful. And honestly, this might be a little harsh, but fear is only an excuse. It allows you to procrastinate, and it allows you to kind of like sit in this cushion of, well, if I don't start or I just let the blog sit there, then I won't have to deal with failing and it'll be okay. But then you get stressed out because you're not making any money, so then it's just a spiral. And
Yeah.
I was very, very big with this when I first started. I had about 4 blogs before I actually had a successful one. And not only the meaning behind it, because a lot of the times for those beginning blogs, my meaning was to make money. The meaning behind your blog and the mindset needs to be teaching people and helping people. That, because if you're just trying to blog to make money, it's not going to work, because it's a long game. Now, in my membership, I help you kind of speed that process up, but again, it doesn't happen overnight. And with that, I know that just do it, like just start or just write, like that doesn't, it's a lot easier said than done. So I actually do kind of have some tips for you. I have an actual whole module inside of my membership that I teach this. But the feeling of failure, the actual root cause of this feeling is really not knowing if you can inspire or teach anybody with your blog. Because at the end of the day, yes, there are some people out there that only want to make money through blog collaborations with brands and stuff like that, but that's not passive, and that's really, really hard to do because there's so many people doing it. So with that, you have to get very specific on your audience and what your audience wants. That way, you have nothing but success. So with that, I want you to ask yourself these questions, because this will kind of help you get very specific on what you're doing, what you want to do, and kind of demolish that fear feeling inside of you. So the first question is, what am I passionate about? And the reason why I'm telling you to ask yourself this question is because if you're just trying to write about blogging or write about business or write about fashion because you think it's going to do well, that's not going to make you successful. What you really need to do is write about what you're passionate about, because even though passions do change over time, the passion that you have is typically going to stay, or at least the overall passion. Like for me, blogging and Pinterest is a passion, but more specifically, making money passively through blogging and Pinterest is a more specific passion that's kind of evolved over time, which thankfully with a blog, it's very versatile and you're able to do that. The next question is, who can I reach with this passion? Or more so, who am I trying to help? Are you trying to help women? Are you trying to help men? Are you trying to help everybody? Are you trying to help a specific age group? Are you trying to help college students? Get really specific on who you're trying to talk to, what their age is. If you do already have an Instagram, which we'll get into this in a minute, but if you do, you can look at those stats, or if you've been blogging for a little while, you can actually go into your Pinterest stats to see what that audience is, and you can almost kind of figure out if that audience is who you're actually trying to speak to, or if it's completely off and you need to change your strategies a little bit. The next question is, what makes me different in this niche? I always challenge every single person that I talk to think about what makes them different, because a lot of people come to me and say, I'm a fashion and lifestyle blogger. There are millions of fashion and lifestyle bloggers out there. So what makes you different? Are you sustainable fashion? Are you living a healthy lifestyle? What makes you different? Get very, very specific. And then the last question is, how can I create an ebook, a course, a video training, or some other downloadable digital content around this topic that I'm passionate about? This is going to allow you to monetize. And when I say monetize in terms of selling an ebook or a course, I don't mean MLM style where you have to message 100 people and say, buy this from me. No, there's a way that I teach that allows you to sell without actually selling. And I know that kind of sounds too good to be true. It's a lot of work, but it does work very, very well. And with those questions, they'll help you get a little bit more specific on who you're trying to reach. And in turn, you'll be able to feel more confident about your ideas. And for those of you stuck on the question of, I don't know what makes me different, you do. And I don't want to hear that excuse. What I want you to do is I want you to sit down, spend a couple minutes, couple hours with these questions, think about them, write them down, walk away, come back, tweak, and then once you've done that, you'll have what you need to be a successful blogger.
Yeah, I love that you're putting out there that in order to have the right mindset, you need to ask yourself these questions. And it is important because once you start going through these questions, like you've just mentioned, you know, spending 2 or 3 or 4, 5 hours just sitting and zoning in and just digging a little bit deeper within yourself and finding the answers. From there, I think you can hit the ground running. You'll be able to start setting a course for yourself much easier because you almost have a little framework then by these questions and these answers that you've come up with. That little framework will then kind of steer you and help you go into a direction. So I love that you're putting it out there. And for those of you listening, please make notes, you know, take note of what Hannah is saying. Write these questions down. Just go get a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, whatever. Go for a walk and just think about this and start writing down what your answers are. Don't just think about them, write them down so you can physically have it in front of you and see it. And that kind of helps a little bit now as well with, I think, also a little bit a part about the mindset about what people have. And I think one of the biggest things they have is that you need a big audience to be a successful blogger. And you have a different opinion about that. So tell us about that.
I do, a very strong different opinion. So you do not, and I actually have a post about this on my Instagram today, but you do not need to have a big audience. And when I was doing the message mining that I do when I create a new product, for my membership specifically, so many people were telling me they didn't have a blog because they wanted to grow their Instagram first, or they had a blog but they hadn't written in 5 to 10 months because they weren't getting any views, so they decided to grow their Instagram first so that they could get their views once they had grown that Instagram. So again, you don't need a big audience to make money or to have a successful blog. And it's honestly a waste of time and it's a waste of money, because especially on Instagram, a big audience is like not really a big audience because of the algorithm. You're stuck dealing with having 10,000 followers and only 5,000 of them seeing your posts, or that's 50%. That's a huge number, but like more so 1,000 people actually seeing it, because it's just, that's just how it is, and that's how social media is. And we'll get more specific on a way that you can actually grow your blog in a second. But first, I want to say it's focusing on Instagram, which is going to be something that you do in the future. Now is just not, it's not worth it. And if your goal is making money and making serious money, like $5,000 to $10,000 a month, this is not the best case scenario. It's going to take you a lot of time to build that audience. Once you kind of build that audience, they're not really going to read your stuff, because that's just not how it works, unfortunately. And in this sense, I do teach Instagram to make money. However, it's a side dish to the main course. So your main course is your blog. Your main course is kind of what you're doing and what you're passionate about, what you're teaching people. And Instagram is a tool. Instagram is not the main course, which you kind of have to almost switch your mindset in a way to think of it that way. And I know I can only imagine how people are like, this girl is crazy. She has no idea what she's talking about. I've been on Instagram for so long and it's working so well, and it may at first, but and this is something I also teach inside of my membership, but it's called a foundation that you're trying to set for your blog. And if you kind of set your foundation on Pinterest, or on Instagram, sorry, eventually windows are going to start to crack, or your ceiling's going to leak, and then eventually your foundation's going to crack and everything's going to just fall apart. You're going to get these false accusations of being successful, and then the following month it's going to be like you've made nothing, and everything's a mess. So focus on creating your blog and focus on really giving your audience valuable information there, and then getting on Pinterest, which that's what we're going to talk about in a second. But Pinterest is really the key to this, not Instagram or a social media platform in general.
Yeah, and what I would just like to put in there as well, what you're saying is so very true. What people need to realize, and for those of you listening and you're thinking that it could only work on social media platforms, remember that your blog is your platform. You've got absolute control of it. Your audience on your blog, or even on your email list, that is what you need to focus on. And like Hannah's saying, the social platforms are just tools that you're using. Those are side dishes. They literally just help you with the visibility and help. And actually part of your strategy should be to drive whatever views or audiences you have from those social media platforms, to drive them back to your blog. And we'll talk about Pinterest in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure that for all of those of you listening, that understand that your blog is your platform. You have control over that, where you don't have control over Instagram, you don't have control over Facebook or any other social media platform. And I think that's what you're trying to kind of explain as well. But the interesting part is where social media is kind of one entity of helping to drive visibility and or traffic back to your blog, but there is an easier way, and I love what I'm going to leave this one to you. There's a fantastic way to drive traffic to your blog, to get a lot more views, and also to have sales from that. So why don't you tell us what that kind of, can I say secret? It's not really a secret, but it exists. Is one strategy that is just really fantastic. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Yes, so Pinterest is the key here. And I'm sure in today's day and age, you've heard Pinterest is a good place for bloggers to be, but what you don't understand is people are coming to Pinterest to learn, to be inspired, and to buy. So I believe I read a stat somewhere. I don't know how up to date this is, but the average household is making $120,000 a year, and those people are active on Pinterest. So I mean, obviously this depends, but they're coming to Pinterest to spend and to buy and to invest in themselves, whether that be through fashion, whether that be through business. There's so many, whether that be through food. I mean, there's an even bigger point of this where like big box office brands are making so much money through Pinterest ads. And I actually teach a completely organic Pinterest strategy. So you don't have to throw money at ads, because I get it. You're a blogger. You want to make money. You don't want to spend money. But there's like an even bigger door that you could go through, bigger than the one that I teach and bigger than the one that I talk about. But I do want to say, Instagram is not the answer. Facebook is not the answer. Facebook groups aren't the answer. Pinterest is, and it's a search engine. It's not a social media platform. I know that there's like a big ongoing argument about this, but Pinterest itself is kind of like a Google and works very well with Google, but it's also kind of like a visual Instagram hybrid in the sense that you have pins, you have the content, people come to search for that content. They're not coming to see what your latest like outfit is on Instagram. They're coming to learn and they're coming to be inspired. So with that, that's why kind of getting really specific on your audience is important, because it is a search engine. You need to know your keywords. You need to understand what your audience is searching about. And also the key here, and I'm going to kind of do a little side note, but how you help your audience is kind of allowing them to achieve their transformation or achieve the deep desire that they want. And a little example of this was, I was actually speaking to my grandmother who had trouble walking, and I was trying to kind of explain to her like how my business is successful and how my business works. And I asked her the question of, if I told you that I could make it so you could walk the rest of your life, what would you say? And she was incredibly enthusiastic about it, and she's like, of course, that's exactly what I want. And then I said, so how much would you be willing to pay for that? And she's like, whatever it costs. Like, I want to be able to walk. So that there is the key to what your audience and what you kind of need to do. You need to make what you are giving your audience so perfect for their desires and so kind of important to them that they want nothing more than to consume your content. That's the whole entire point of this. And back to Pinterest now. Pinterest kind of makes so much sense in this kind of scenario, because there's so many people on it. There's men, there's women, kids. I mean, obviously you're not trying to sell the kids, but you can target their parents to help the kids. But in that sense, you're able to reach people from different countries, from different areas of your country, it's just so specific and so important that you kind of utilize this platform in this sense. And it also makes myself, my clients, and my members thousands of dollars a month. And like I said, it gives you that ability to reach these people that you could have never dreamed of reaching before. Now, it's a lot of work. It really is. And it's kind of hard to find a good Pinterest strategy that actually works, because a lot of the Pinterest and blogging gurus out there kind of teach you what has worked for their audience, but they haven't taken into account that what works for them isn't going to work for you. That's what makes me a little bit different. And as I mentioned before, I've spent a lot of time perfecting the strategy, working with a lot of other clients and kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't, what works for this audience, what doesn't work for this audience. And that being said, I do have a couple tips for you guys, especially for those getting started, and then actually those that maybe have been on this platform for a really long time but aren't really seeing the success that they thought they were going to. I actually encourage you to go back to these tips and really implement them into your strategy, because sometimes the most important things are the simplest beginner tips that people are missing. So with that, the first tip is keyword. It's key. And it's also literally in the name. And I encourage you to spend a couple hours actually searching for these keywords on Pinterest and writing them down to sprinkle throughout your platform. Make sure every single board that you have has board descriptions. Make sure that every single pin that you're pinning and sharing has these pin descriptions written. And if you're utilizing Tailwind, they actually won't let you pin a pin without it having a description. So you need to make sure that the keywords that you're doing the research on are in these descriptions, in your board titles, in your pin titles, in your bio, in your name actually on Pinterest is really helpful too. The second tip is creating multiple pins for each of your blog posts, each of your landing pages, each of your digital products, and you can actually down the line create pins for your YouTube videos, your Instagram posts. There's so many different things that you can create pins for. And Pinterest, that's another thing that I did want to say too. Pinterest is not only good for growing your blog and making money, but you can grow your Instagram and your YouTube all at the same time on the platform. So it's really an everything you need kind of thing, as long as you know how to use it. And then the last tip that I think most people struggle with is claiming their website, their Instagram, their YouTube, and their Etsy. If you have any one of those things, make sure those are claimed, because what happens is when you claim your account, it allows Pinterest to trust you, and it allows basically them to say, okay, this person's going to be sharing valuable content. I want to make sure the algorithm is saying this. I want to make sure that their pins get distribution. That being said, only share pins that are like going to URLs that are claimed on your account. And this is one that's very specific to bloggers that are working with affiliate links and stuff like that. There are ways that you can share your affiliate links inside of your blog post and on the actual pin itself without actually going to the affiliate link. And that's just by using the tag product feature. Pinterest created this so that it would deter you away from putting affiliate links in the kind of URL box, because first of all, it's not going to do well, and second of all, they don't really want people just selling on their platform. The whole point of this is to give valuable content. And yeah, that's really the most important.
I'm so glad you said this. I'm just quickly going to recap on that. The first thing you said, the first step, which I find is absolute definitely the way to go, is your keyword. Number one, your keyword research, but also then to make sure you use those keywords on everything. And I think another thing that people need to remember is that keyword also should be in the title of your image. So don't just have image 123 underscore / whatever. Make sure that you actually have that keyword and the title then of whatever your blog or whatever it is that you're doing on your image. So the keywords are definitely one of the most important things, because like we said, Pinterest is a search engine like Google. If those keywords aren't there, nobody's going to find your pins. And then the second thing you said is you can obviously have multiple pins for one blog. It doesn't mean that you just need to have one pen going out. Now, yes, you might want to change those pens, make them look different, use different imagery, whatever it is. But it is so important, because the more pens you have that goes out there, again, remember, Pinterest is all about the visuals. So the more visuals you have out there, the more people or different kinds of people can connect with those visual pins. And then that would lead them back to your blog. So really, really important. Can I just ask you, is there kind of like a rule of thumb that you would suggest? How many pins per blog?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. I do have a couple more tips in terms of creating pins. So Pinterest has kind of the criteria, and typically in terms of that, you might want to get a piece of paper out if you're interested in this. Typically it's a 2-to-3 ratio, so a 600 by 900 pixel pin. I actually have had better success with a 600 by 1200 pixel pin. So if you want to use that, I recommend doing both. I still to this day create both for me and my clients, in terms of maybe it's taking the same image and same text overlay and all of that stuff and actually putting it on just a bigger one and kind of formatting it to look better. And then also in terms of the criteria, Pinterest and the algorithm loves fresh pins. And what that means is a new blog post, a new Pinterest pin, a new URL, and a new description. Now, obviously, I'm not asking you to write a blog post one time and then share it a couple times to Pinterest and have that be over. However, you still create fresh pins by just doing a new image, new text overlay, new words, new descriptions, and that can be as well fresh. And then in terms of what I recommend for kind of the amount of pins to create, there's no real answer. Like I can't just say make 100 pins and you'll be good, because Pinterest is kind of something that you do need to keep up with. You can automate the process as much as humanly possible. I spend about an hour to 2 hours a week per client creating their whole entire Pinterest strategy. You could do yours in a month, like create the whole amount of content in a month and have that be done in like 5 hours on a Sunday or something. But I always recommend creating 3 to 5 pins per blog post per week. Now, if you're somebody that has like 300 blog posts, then I would recommend kind of picking the five that you want to do, of your best that do always very well. And then whatever new posts that you're creating, create new pins for all of those each week. And you'll be able to not only keep traffic on the ones that are doing really well, but you'll able to also kind of grow the traffic on the past blog posts that you've written, and then get traffic on the new blog posts that you've written as well.
Exactly. And I like that you're saying that, because there's no cap onto how many pins you can put out there. Actually, Pinterest wants you to pin as much as possible. And the more you pin, whether it is pinning other people's content or whether you're pinning your own content, the better for you, because it's continuously drive traffic. And yes, if you haven't started or you haven't done Pinterest before, it is a slow process. It's an organic process. So it will start slow. People will start seeing your content. They'll start repenning your pens, which is great because it provides more visibility, and then people will then use that and go and feed back to where your blog is and go read the article that you've set out there, and then they will obviously start browsing your website, seeing who you are, what it is that you're doing. But the main thing is that you need to keep on penning. The more you pen, the more, how can I say, the floodgates will start opening, because more people will start seeing your content, and before you know it, you'll have so many views on your website. But then again, just putting a little bit of a caveat on that, always make sure that you always have a way on your website or your blog to capture those leads. Now that is a completely different topic, but make sure, because there's no use to have all of those viewers coming to your blog, but you can't capture those leads. So that is a little bit of a something. We'll possibly touch up on that in a little bit. But I think the last tip that you gave, which is so important, is claiming your website, your blog, whatever it is. Now, there's a very easy way to do it. I think it's with about 2 or 3 clicks that you do it. If you don't know, reach out to Hannah, reach out to myself, or just go and find it on Pinterest. People tell you how to do it on Pinterest. Yeah. Just Google it. But there is a very easy way to do it. And it is important to do that, because it just shows that you are, number one, legit, that you have a valuable content to share to the audience, and Pinterest favors that. So definitely make sure that that is something that you do. So thank you so much for mentioning that, Hannah. I think it is really, really good. I just want to touch up a little bit on Pinterest. I want to ask you, basically, the first time you started Pinterest, tell us how that kind of worked for you, how you started off, and when more or less you started realizing the results were increasing. I mean, what did that take for you?
Yeah, so I started using Pinterest like everybody else. I was using it to like design my room and get, you know, the best recipes possible. And then when I kind of started my blogging career, I knew that if I was going to be successful, I needed to know what was going on. Like, I needed to know how to blog. I needed to know what Pinterest was and what the power of Pinterest was. And that being said, that's kind of why I started on Pinterest. I just kind of picked it and was like, I need to deep dive on this. I need to do research. I need to do everything. And actually, the way that I started Pinterest is not the way that I would recommend starting anymore. Funny story. I started really paying attention to Pinterest kind of in August. I can't even remember the year. That's really bad. It was a long time ago, but it was in August of whatever year it was. And basically what I did was I pinned other people's content for a whole month before I even started pinning my own. I was completely redoing my website, designing it, and doing that whole thing. And then after August, kind of like the end of August-ish, I started sharing my content. And one thing that I noticed, and this is actually something that I don't really tell anybody other than my membership, so kind of like cool tip for you. When you start sharing other people's content, you're going to be giving them traffic. So once you share their content enough or you share it long enough, Pinterest is going to really push your account and get you to like 1 million or 2 million monthly viewers, but all of that traffic is going to other people. So when you're starting out, especially now, if you're somebody who has a blog, maybe you've been pinning other people's content, I encourage you right now to start sharing your blog posts, even if they're not good. Create 3 to 5 pins for them, share them, because what you want is you want people going to your website, and there's almost 2 types of accounts that I see, and kind of like the really important tip. The accounts that I see that aren't as successful at first are the ones that share other people's content all the time. This is the way that I started out, so it was a little harder for me. I've noticed now, even though this isn't something that was really necessarily talked about, is sharing your content up front and first, in addition to other people's content, is actually the better way to go, because kind of like the accounts that I've seen take a longer time to get more traffic to your site. So it's almost like, even though you've claimed your website, Pinterest prefers other people's pins because that's what you've taught the algorithm to do for your account. So you want to teach the algorithm to share your content and kind of prioritize your content over other people's stuff. So that's kind of like a little tidbit in there for you.
Oh my gosh, that is so interesting, because I started like you. I started sharing other people's stuff, and only when my blog was up and running and my podcast started, only then did I start, sharing my stuff. So I kind of told the algorithm wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so interesting. I never knew about that. And I've been using Pinterest, not as long as you, but I've been using Pinterest for the last year. And I thought that I'd figured it all out. And obviously I haven't. There's still so much to learn. But Hannah, this is amazing. I really, really like, this conversation. It's amazing. And I hope for all of you listening to this, you're getting some great tips as well. Now, I just want to touch up a little bit on what I mentioned earlier, because I know I left that there with a big question mark. It's obviously part of your strategy, apart from just penning your content or your pens in order to make sure that people come to your blog. It's great when you get those views and people come to your blog and they can obviously read your blog post. And it's great because it's a numbers game, and you love seeing the numbers climbing. You love seeing that you getting 100 views a day, 200 views a day, whatever. It's amazing. And especially if you're starting out and if you're starting small, it's one of those things you check every day. How many views have I had? How many views have I had? But the important thing is like we mentioned earlier, it all ties back down to the fact that your blog is obviously your platform and you've got complete control of it. But you don't know how many of those views are just there browsing, or how many of those views are actually there because they're interested. They want to learn more from you. So part of your strategy is obviously, and Hannah, chip in here whenever you want, because I know you doing this as well. Part of your strategy is obviously to make sure that you have some kind of something there, either a free PDF or a free guide, an ebook, like you said you had yourself, something there that is available where people can obviously opt in for it. Now, if you haven't heard of the word opt in, it is basically a little standalone page where they give their name and their email address, and they can download that ebook or that free PDF or whatever content you have available for them to help them. And that obviously means that you are building your email list along the side, meaning you are growing your audience that you have complete control of. This is not to do with social media. Social media is completely on the side. Remember, that is not your platform. You don't have control over the followers or the viewers that you have there. But that strategy is one of the most important things that you have to incorporate in your blog, because we're talking about blogging here. Getting the viewers from Pinterest, having that strategy, driving traffic to your blog, absolutely key. But once that traffic is on your blog, what are they going to do? Well, number one, they're obviously going to read the blog post. But number two, if they want to know more about you, well, how are you going to do that? Obviously by giving them a freebie and have that opt-in page. So that's just a little bit of an extra part I wanted to throw in there. So for all of you bloggers listening to this, make sure that you have that available. And if you want to know more and you want to know how to obviously extend that, I'm sure Hannah's got some great advice as well to give you. And is that something that you teach as well in your membership?
Yeah, so basically inside of the membership, it's 4 phases. So the first one is getting really specific with your audience and creating that escape plan, whether that be escaping your 9 to 5, escaping whatever situation you are in now. Phase 2 is kind of creating that offer, crafting that really, really specific offer, and then creating the surrounding content. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, yes, you created this product, or yes, you created this freebie, but that's not the end. You still have to create landing pages. You have to create supporting blog posts, social media posts, all of this stuff. It's not just create a landing page and then hope people buy, because they're not gonna, because they don't know how, or they don't know where to find it. And then I have a tech-free setup phase, so that you kind of, or a hassle-free tech setup phase, where you kind of, for like the really non-techie bloggers out there, I kind of teach you how to do it really easy, set it up in one day. And then the last phase is really where we're elevating and automating your profits, and kind of making sure that you're not spending a lot of time on stuff that shouldn't take you a lot of time. And then also you're elevating this traffic and you're elevating your sales. So there are a couple things that I want to actually give you as kind of side in terms of this. So for kind of the emails, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. And yes, you can 100% make money passively through ad revenue services like Google Ads or Mediavine, like we were talking about earlier. However, you can actually take this traffic further in terms of buying products, getting on your email list, consuming your content, following you on Instagram. There's so many different ways that you can utilize this content for you. And specifically in terms, since we're talking about making money, specifically purchasing your products or kind of investing into you for your freebie or your opt-in or whatever you want to call it. I highly, highly recommend moving away from kind of like the printable stuff and kind of moving more towards either a free course or a free video training series or a free masterclass or something like that that's a little different, because this whole blogging industry is a little oversaturated in terms of printables and templates and checklists and all that stuff. So I encourage you to put a little bit more work into it. And always the tip that I give my members, I give the people that ask me questions, if it hurts you to give it away, like if you're not sure, like, am I giving too much away for free? That means it's good, and that means it's going to do really good things for you. So if it hurts you to give it away, then it's a good freebie. Like, for example, I'm in the process of making a completely free blogging course in terms of setting up your blog, what pages you need for success, how to make money, like that kind of thing, that I'm going to be giving away for free, that other people are charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for. But because I'm not teaching people how to start a blog, I'm teaching people how to make money to start a blog, it makes sense for me to give this away for free. Even though I could put this in my membership and make people pay for it, I'm not doing that.
But talk to us a little bit about your free masterclass, because you've got a fantastic masterclass available to the audience. So just tell us a little bit about that and where people can go and get that.
Yes, of course. So if you are kind of listening to this stuff and you are really interested in making money, consistent passive income, but I specifically in this masterclass kind of teach you or walk you through some of my strategies on how you can kind of create this passive income without a big audience or a lot of time. It takes 7 to 10 hours a week. This masterclass itself is about 60 minutes long, and it kind of talks to you about the mistakes I made when I was starting, and then also walks you through again my strategies. And if you are interested in that, like, completely free, and you can go to hannahLjohnson.com/go.
Perfect. And what we'll do is we'll have that link at the bottom in the show notes. So by all means, go and sign up for the free masterclass. I'm sure you're going to get so much great information from Hannah there, especially if you're now just starting out blogging or you've already been blogging and you just want to know how to monetize that and start actually making some money from blogging. Well, this is definitely the way to go. And I think another thing that I want to say as well is if you're blogging and you find you're not having a great stream of traffic coming to your blog, well, go and sign up, because Hannah is going to explain a little bit about Pinterest. You'll get some more great information there, and definitely start using Pinterest yourself. Hannah, thank you again so much for this interview. I really appreciate your time being here. It's been so great, and I love talking about Pinterest as well. I mean, sometimes I feel like a little rubber ball, like it's so excited talking about it all the time. But no, I really appreciate it. Thank you again, and thank you to all of you listening. Please, please, please go down to the bottom of my show notes and go and sign up for Hannah's free masterclass. Hannah, have a lovely day. Enjoy it. And we will definitely be in touch very soon again.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to have been able to talk to you and your audience and everybody that wants to kind of make money blogging today. So this is really exciting. And I really look forward to connecting with you too.
Awesome. Thank you so much and take care.